What's going on, guys? My name is Trevor. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. In this movie follows a charming thief and a band of unlikely adventurers who embark on an epic quest to retrieve a lost relic. I was lucky enough to check this one out early. This is my spoiler-free thoughts. Let me know your spoiler-free thoughts down below in the comment section. Have you had a chance to see this movie yet? It comes out in theaters this weekend. If you haven't seen it, are you going to be checking it out? And let's get into it. So coming into this film, I've never played D&D. I knew nothing about it. The only thing I knew about Dungeons & Dragons is what Stranger Things has taught me. So I went into this movie and completely blind. All I've heard that is Chris Pine's great. It's a fun, awesome adventure. And that's exactly what this movie was. It's a fun, grand, awesome fantasy adventure, and I am a diehard fan of the fantasy genre, so this movie was right up my alley, and it sounds like this game is kind of right up my alley. The one big worry I had about this movie going into it is that I would have to understand the lore of Dungeons & Dragons, and I would have to understand the game, and I would have to have played the game to fully get this movie. And I'm so glad to say that that wasn't the case with this movie. A lot of my audience was dressed up. They were cheering, they were laughing, they were pointing things out in the theater. They were going over my head, but that didn't take away from the overall experience in the movie. And I really appreciated that. You gotta talk about this cast. Chris Pine is great in everything he does. I need more Chris Pine in more movies. Michelle Rodriguez is just, she plays a brawn so well. From Letty in Fast and Furious to Holga in Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. She's absolutely great. My favorite character in this movie was the character of Simon, played by Justice Smith, as someone who just doesn't believe in themselves at all. Just constantly tells himself that they can't do it, do not have a positive mindset about anything they're trying to do, and he's constantly battling that throughout the entire movie, and he comes up clutch so many times, and Justice Smith had this charm about him that just made me fall in love with this character, easily to stand out in this movie for me. But the entire cast, they worked together greatly. One thing that really stood out to me was just how grand and epic this movie was, and how it felt when they were going into the lore of this and to different kingdoms and to different parts of the world. It just kept expanding and expanding, and I just couldn't help but think there's so much room for a sequel and a whole trilogy or franchise for this universe, because there's so many different things we didn't even get to explore. It just really is an epic grand fantasy that I want to see more of, and I hope we get more sequels, because I want to see more of this world. The lore and the world building they created with this was nothing short of extraordinary. The big standout in this movie, though, is the comedy. I was not expecting to laugh as much as I did, but this is the most I've laughed in a theater in a very, very long time. And I would say this is the most fun I've had while watching a movie in a theater since like Avengers Endgame. That's how rowdy my crowd was. It was the most electric crowd I've been in such a long time. It made me realize how much I love huge fandoms and how I love how so many fans will come to just geek out about a movie. It's one of my favorite things in the world. A couple problems I have with the movie is that at times the humor is a little bit too much. They are cracking jokes pretty much the entirety of this film, and some of them, I would say 40%, 30% don't really land. They kind of make you smile, might make you roll your eyes just a little bit. So I feel at times they were trying to be too silly and too fun and too funny. You just want a movie to take itself seriously, maybe just a little bit. So, and some of the humor doesn't land, and that's going to happen with comedy in general. But I found myself more often not going, okay, but I also found myself laughing quite a bit, but that's the one little nitpick I have in there. And also, sometimes they don't explain certain things about Dungeons & Dragons that kind of happen. You're just supposed to go along with it, and obviously, for the people who have played this game, who obviously this movie's really meant for, they understand it. But for me, who knows nothing about Dungeons & Dragons, some things were kind of going over my head. Looking back at Stranger Things, like, well, they didn't teach me enough. At the end of the day, those are two minuscule, minor nitpicks. This movie gave me everything and more I could have wanted. It is my favorite movie of the year so far. It is one of my top 10 favorite fantasy movies. I love everything this movie had to offer, from the humor, to the lore, to the world building, to these characters, to the overall fantasy adventure. It was amazing. And one final thing, you gotta talk about that score, the soundtrack, and the action. The action is epic. I mean, everything about this movie wowed me. I loved it so much. My favorite movie of the year, easily. I can't recommend this movie enough. If you haven't had a chance to see it, you definitely need to get your butt to the theater this opening weekend, because it is everything and more I could have wanted in a movie. I'm going a 4.5 out of 5. I loved the hell out of this one. Let me know your thoughts on Dungeons & Dragons and Honor Among Thieves down below in the comment section, and leave a like, hit that subscribe button, notification bell so you don't miss any future content. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.